Ambassador Park Hannah took a deep breath as she walked into the massive chamber of the Galactic Council. The ceiling stretched so high above her that it disappeared into shadows, and the walls curved in a perfect circle round hundreds of floating platforms where alien representatives sat in judgment. She felt incredibly small. Round her, creatures from across the galaxy towered over her human form, the Zephyrians with their blue crystalline skin and fur-glowing eyes. The massive rock-like beings from the Stonovo Empire who looked like walking mountains. Insect-like creatures with razor-sharp mandibles clicked and chittered in their native tongues. Flying jellyfish creatures pulsed with bioluminescent patterns as they floated near the ceiling. All of them were staring at her with expressions that ranged from mild curiosity to open contempt. The holographic displays round the chamber flickered to life, showing the military might of each species. The Zephyrian fleet appeared first, sleek blue warships that stretched for kilometers, their hulls crackling with energy weapons. Next came the Stonovo Armada, massive grey fortresses that looked like flying asteroids bristling with cannons. The insectoid hive showed their organic ships that pulsed like living creatures, each one capable of spawning thousands of fighter drones. Each display was more impressive than the last. Ships that could crack planets, fleets that numbered in the thousands, weapons that could sterilize entire star systems. Then came Earth's turn. The display flickered, and suddenly the grand chamber filled with laughter. Not polite diplomatic chuckling, but full-throated mockery that echoed off the walls like thunder. Admiral Vextar of the Zephyrian Navy rose from his platform, his fur eyes blazing with amusement. His translator collar rendered his words in perfect English, dripping with disdain. And what does humanity offer to this alliance? A handful of frigates that looked like they were built in someone's garage. The laughter grew louder. Park Hannah looked at the display showing Earth's official fleet roster, 12 ships total. The largest was the UES Defiant, barely 500 meters long, a tiny speck compared to the alien dreadnoughts surrounding them. Surely this must be some kind of mistake, rumbled the Granite Lord, his voice like grinding stone. Each word seemed to shake the entire chamber. These toys would not survive even a training exercise with real military forces. Are the humans perhaps showing us their civilian transport vessels by accident? More laughter erupted. The jellyfish creatures pulsed with colors that their translators indicated as mirth. The insectoid's mandibles clicked in rhythm that sounded almost like applause. Park Hannah felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she kept her diplomatic smile firmly in place. She had trained for this moment for years, knowing exactly how it would go. The plan required her to appear weak, defeated, harmless. "We understand the Council's position," she said, her voice calm despite the mockery surrounding her. "Humanity appreciates your thorough assessment of our military capabilities." Admiral Vextar's translator couldn't quite capture the smugness in his voice as he continued. "Perhaps humans would be better suited to providing food services to real military vessels, or maybe janitorial work on our stations." The chamber erupted again. Even the usually dignified council chairman, a tall grey being with 6 arms, seemed to be suppressing what might have been a smile. "Very well," the chairman announced, his voice cutting through the laughter with authority. "All those in favor of denying Earth's application for military alliance status?" Hundreds of appendages, tentacles, claws, and limbs rose into the air. The vote was unanimous. "Earth's application is hereby denied," the chairman declared. "Perhaps, in a few centuries, when humanity has developed actual warships, they may reapply." As the session ended and the various alien delegates began floating, slithering, and walking toward the exits, Park Hannah remained standing calmly at her podium. She waited until most of the chamber had emptied before reaching into her diplomatic pouch. Her fingers found the small, innocuous-looking communicator that appeared to be nothing more than a standard Earth-made device. The alien scans had dismissed it as primitive technology, not worth their attention. She activated it with a gesture so subtle that even the remaining observers didn't notice. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper, but the words carried across dimensions through quantum encrypted channels that the galaxy's most advanced civilizations couldn't detect. Phoenix Protocol. Authorization. Thunder. The communicator went dark. And Park Hannah tucked it away with the same diplomatic smile she'd worn throughout the humiliation. As she walked toward the exit, none of the aliens noticed the slight spring in her step or the glint in her eyes. Deep beneath Earth's Pacific Ocean, in trenches so dark and cold that no surface dweller had ever seen them, ancient systems that had slumbered for 50 years began to wake up. Status lights flickered from red to amber as massive generators hummed to life. Computer cores that had been running on minimal power suddenly blazed with activity. The real game was about to begin. The first attack came without any warning at all. One moment, the peaceful mining colony of Kepler-440 was going about its normal day. Alien families tending to their crystal farms, cargo ships moving supplies between the orbital stations, children playing in the dome cities under the orange glow of their star. The next moment, space itself seemed to tear open. Massive black pyramids materialized out of nowhere, each one the size of a small moon. Their surfaces were perfectly smooth obsidian that seemed to absorb all light round them. No windows, no visible weapons, no markings of any kind. They just hung there in space like giant tombstones against the stars. Then they opened fire. Beams of superheated plasma erupted from hidden ports along the pyramid's surfaces. The energy was so intense it turned the vacuum of space itself into a glowing purple inferno. The colony's defense platforms, massive structures that had protected the system for over 200 years, simply evaporated on contact. The orbital stations tried to run. Their engines screamed as they pushed beyond safety limits. But it didn't matter. The plasma beams moved faster than anything the galaxy had ever seen, reaching across millions of kilometers in seconds to touch each fleeing ship. One moment they were there, the next they were expanding clouds of superheated gas. The attack lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it was over, Kepler-440 was a dead world, its atmosphere stripped away, and its surface turned to glass. The same scene played out across the galaxy over the next week. Peaceful worlds that had never known war suddenly found themselves facing an enemy that seemed to come from nightmares. The Zirian hegemony didn't negotiate, didn't demand surrender, didn't even seem to want territory. They just destroyed everything. The agricultural world of New Eden, where the plant like Verdoni had grown food for half the galaxy, gone in minutes. The crystal cities of Lumina Prime, carved from pure diamond over thousands of years, reduced to sparkling dust. The floating cities of Aquatica, where the jellyfish people had built their civilization in the clouds, burned out of the sky. By the end of the week, 17 worlds had fallen silent, 17 civilizations wiped from existence, billions of lives snuffed out like candles in a hurricane. The Galactic Council chamber had never seen chaos like this. Alien delegates who had maintained dignified composure for centuries were now screaming at each other in panic. Holographic displays showed the advancing hegemony fleets as red markers moving steadily inward from the outer rim, leaving nothing but dead space behind them. Admiral Vextar stood at the center podium, his eyes wide with terror. His earlier arrogance was completely gone, replaced by the desperate fear of someone who had seen his entire understanding of warfare become obsolete overnight. The outer rim defense grid has completely collapsed, he announced, his voice shaking. Our combined fleets are falling back to the secondary defensive line. But intelligence reports suggest the hegemony has over 1,000 pyramid ships, maybe More. They keep appearing from nowhere using some kind of technology we've never seen before. The Granite Lord's massive form was trembling, small pebbles falling from his rocky hide as stress cracks appeared in his stone skin. My home world of Teros has gone silent. 3 billion of my people, they're just gone. The insectoid hive queen's mandibles chattered rapidly as she spoke through her translator. The swarm mind reports that our scouts cannot get close enough to analyze hegemony technology. Every probe we send is destroyed before it can transmit data. They're using weapons that operate on principles we don't understand. Panic filled the chamber as more reports flooded in. Distress signals from worlds under attack. Refugee ships fleeing with tales of unstoppable black pyramids. Defense fleets being obliterated without managing to inflict a single casualty on the enemy. We need every ship, every weapon, every ally we can find, Admiral Vextar declared, desperation making his voice crack. Contact every species in the database, even the ones we've never formally allied with, even, he paused, his pride warring with his terror, even the humans. The other delegates looked at each other. Several made sounds that their translators rendered as bitter laughter. The humans, with their 12 tiny ships. What could they possibly do against an enemy that had crushed the combined might of the galaxies? Greatest civilizations, but desperation makes even the proudest beings consider impossible options. The communication ray activated, and Park Hannah's calm face appeared in the holographic display. She was sitting in what looked like a simple office on Earth, completely serene despite the chaos surrounding her transmission. She might as well have been discussing the weather. Ambassador Park. Vextar began, his voice breaking with emotion. He'd never shown before. The galaxy is under attack. We know your military capabilities are modest, but we're asking every species to contribute whatever they can. Even a single ship might make a difference. Any assistance you could provide. Park Hannah listened to his plea with the same diplomatic smile she'd worn during her humiliation at the council. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment, as if considering her options. "We'll send appropriate help," she said finally, her voice carrying an odd note of confidence that none of the aliens could interpret. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in uncomfortable silence. Appropriate help from 12 frigates. Several delegates made sounds of disgust. They were facing the annihilation of galactic civilization, and the humans were offering appropriate help. What could 12 small ships possibly accomplish against pyramid warships the size of moons? None of them knew that at that very moment, deep beneath Earth's Pacific Ocean, something that had been sleeping for 50 years was beginning to stir. Ancient systems were coming online. Massive engines were warming up, and in the crushing darkness of the deepest ocean trenches, a leviathan was preparing to rise. The galaxy was about to learn what humans really meant by appropriate help. Captain Kim Daeho felt the familiar tingle of cryogenic revival spreading through his body as the pod's life support systems slowly brought him back to consciousness. The gentle hiss of releasing pressurized gases filled his ears as the transparent aluminum cover slid back with a soft mechanical whir. He sat up slowly, his muscles remembering their strength as the revival drugs coursed through his system. Round him, the sight was absolutely incredible. 10,000 cryogenic pods stretching out in perfect rows across a chamber so vast it seemed to have no end. Each pod was opening simultaneously, releasing men and women who had been sleeping in the cold darkness for 50 long years. These weren't ordinary soldiers. They were the cream of humanity's military. Pilots who could fly through asteroid fields blindfolded. Engineers who could rebuild a fusion reactor with spare parts. Tacticians who had studied every battle in human history and a few that hadn't happened yet. Each one had volunteered for this mission knowing they might never see their families again. Captain Kim swung his legs over the side of his pod and stood, feeling the deck plates vibrate slightly under his feet. The vibration wasn't from machinery. It was from the heartbeat of the largest warship ever constructed by human hands. The used Phoenix wasn't just a ship. It was a floating city, a mobile fortress, a factory, and humanity's greatest secret all rolled into one impossible creation. For 50 years, it had rested on the ocean floor disguised as an underwater mountain range. Its massive bulk hidden beneath layers of synthetic rock and metal that perfectly mimicked natural geologica. L formations. No satellite had ever detected it. No deep-sea exploration vessel had ever gotten close enough to realize they were looking at something artificial. The Phoenix had been Earth's trump card, sleeping in the deepest trenches of the Pacific while the galaxy above dismissed humanity as primitives with toy spaceships. Now it was time to wake up. Kim made his way through corridors that stretched 4 kilometers, passing thousands of crew members who were also shaking off 50 years of cold sleep. The ship's internal transportation system, magnetic tubes that could carry a person from bow to stern in minutes, whisked him toward the command bridge as he traveled. He caught glimpses through massive viewports of the Phoenix's true scale, hangar bays that could hold entire fleets, manufacturing centers where robotic systems were already at work. Weapon systems that had been theoretical concepts when the ship was built but were now terrifyingly real. The command bridge was a sphere of transparent metal suspended in the center of the ship's forward section. As Kim stepped inside, he felt the familiar weight of command settling on his shoulders. This was where humanity would make its stand. Status report. Commanderly, he ordered, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had trained his entire life for this moment. Commanderly Su-min turned from her station, and Kim could see the excitement blazing in her eyes despite her professional demeanor. She was the Phoenix's chief tactical officer, a woman who had designed some of the ship's most advanced weapon systems before joining its crew. All systems are operating at 100% efficiency, Captain, she reported. Her voice tight, with barely controlled anticipation. The automated fabrication bays have been working round the clock since we received the activation signal. They've produced 8,000 drone fighters in the past 6 hours, with more coming online every minute. Kim nodded approvingly. The Phoenix's manufacturing capabilities were beyond anything the galaxy had ever imagined. While other species built their ships in massive orbital shipyards over years or decades, the Phoenix could construct entire fleets in a matter of hours. What about our stealth systems? He asked. Active and fully operational, Lee replied with a grin. We're currently invisible to every scanning technology in the galactic database. Radar, LiDAR, gravitational sensors, quantum resonance detectors. None of them can see us as far as the rest of the universe is concerned. We don't exist through the bridge viewports. Kim could see the ocean surface far above them, a shimmering ceiling of blue-green water that had hidden the Phoenix from the galaxy for half a century. Schools of deep-sea fish swam past the windows, completely unaware that they were looking at humanity's ultimate weapon. The ship's artificial intelligence chose that moment to speak. Artemis had been designed using technology that was decades ahead of anything Earth had officially revealed to the galaxy. Her voice was perfectly human, warm and reassuring. But Kim knew that behind the gentle tone was a computational power that could process information faster than the combined databases of the Galactic Council. Captain, Artemis announced, I have confirmed the current tactical situation. The Zirian hegemony has engaged Council forces at Theta Prime. Long-range sensors indicate enemy strength at approximately 400 pyramid ships. Council forces are being systematically destroyed. Estimated time until complete defeat, 14 hours. Kim felt a cold smile spread across his face. The same aliens who had laughed at humanity's 12 little ships were about to discover what humans were really capable of when they stopped pretending to be weak. "Then it's time the galaxy learned what we've really been building down here," he said. "All hands, battle stations, Artemis, begin ascent protocols. Acknowledged. Captain, all crew members report ready for combat operations. Beginning ascent now." The Phoenix began to rise through the crushing depths of the Pacific as it climbed, its stealth systems activated fully, bending light and energy around the massive hull until it became completely invisible to every sensor in known space. The ocean surface broke round the ship's hull like a gentle caress, water streaming from armor plating that had been forged in the heart of stars for a moment. The Phoenix hung there on the surface like a metal island 15 kilometers long. Then it vanished completely. To any observer, the ocean appeared empty. But high above Earth's atmosphere, the Phoenix was already accelerating toward the stars, carrying with it the hopes of humanity and the promise of a very unpleasant surprise for anyone who had ever underestimated the species from the small blue planet. The real war was about to begin. High Admiral Zexithan stood on the bridge of his massive pyramid flagship, the Void Crusher Asterisk, watching with satisfaction as the last of Theta Prime's orbital defense platforms exploded in brilliant balls of fire. The battle had been pathetically easy. Just like all the others, his flagship alone was over 5 kilometers tall, a perfect black pyramid that seemed to drink in the light of nearby stars. Round it, 399 other pyramid ships hung in space like a fleet of floating mountains, each one capable of reducing a planet to ash below them. Theta Prime burned. The beautiful blue-green world that had been home to 12 billion aliens was now smoking ruin. The planet's defense fleet, over 2,000 ships that had taken centuries to build, was nothing more than glowing debris drifting through space. Another glorious victory for the hegemony, Zexithan declared, his voice echoing through the bridge. He was a massive creature, standing nearly 4 meters tall with skin like black metal and 6 arms that ended in razor-sharp claws. His species had conquered 17 galaxies before setting their sights on this one. His bridge crew, dozens of similar creatures working at stations carved from solid obsidian, made sounds of approval. All that rumbled like distant thunder. "Begin orbital bombardment," Zexithan commanded. "I want every city, every structure, every sign that life ever existed on this world completely." His words died in his throat as his sensor officer suddenly screamed in terror. "Sir." Massive energy signatures detected, and known ships appearing. From nowhere, Zexithan spun toward the main display, his 6 eyes widening in disbelief. The space round Theta Prime, which had been empty seconds before, was suddenly filled with ships. But these weren't like any vessels in the galactic database. They were sleek and angular, their hulls gleaming silver-white like polished mirrors. They moved with a fluid grace that seemed almost alive, sliding through space without any visible engines or exhaust. And at their center was something impossible. A ship so massive it made even the Germany's flagship look like a child's toy. It stretched across space like a metal mountain range, its hull disappearing into the distance. Weapon ports along its sides glowed with energy that made space itself ripple and bend. What is that thing?" Zexithan whispered, his voice filled with something he hadn't felt in centuries. Fear. His tactical officer's claws clicked frantically across his control surface. "Admiral, the largest vessel measures 15 kilometers in length. That's impossible. No species in this galaxy has the technology to build something that size." "Identification?" Zexithan demanded. "Unknown, sir. The ships don't match any design in our databases. But, Admiral, The officer's voice cracked with disbelief. "I'm detecting human energy signatures. Humans," Zexuthan laughed. But the sound was hollow. "The pathetic species with 12 tiny ships. Don't be ridiculous." Then the human fleet opened fire. What happened next shattered everything the hegemony thought they knew about warfare. The human fighters didn't just attack. They moved like they were reading the hegemony's minds. Every defensive maneuver, every tactical formation, every weapon deployment was anticipated and countered before it could be effective. Zexuthan watched. In growing horror, his pyramid ships fired their massive plasma cannons. Weapons that had destroyed entire star systems. The brilliant purple beams lanced out toward the human vessels, carrying enough energy to vaporize continents. The beams passed harmlessly through the human ships, as if they weren't even there. "Impossible," he roared. "Nothing can survive direct hits from our main guns." But his tactical officer was already screaming new reports. "Admiral, the human ships are using some kind of adaptive shielding. Their defenses are learning our weapon frequencies and adjusting in real time." The human counterattack began a moment later. Beams of pure white energy erupted from the massive carrier, each one striking a pyramid ship with surgical precision. But instead of trying to destroy the heavily armored vessels, the human weapons seemed to target specific systems. Zexuthan watched in disbelief as pyramid ship after pyramid ship simply stopped. Their engines went dark, their weapons powered down, their life support systems failed. The massive warships became floating tombs in seconds. "They're not trying to destroy us," he realized with growing terror. "They're dissecting us." The human fighters were even worse. They moved in perfect coordination, sharing information instantaneously. When one drone learned how to penetrate a pyramid ship's armor, all 8,000 drones immediately knew the same technique. When the hegemony tried a new defensive pattern, the humans adapted to it before it could be fully deployed. It was like fighting an enemy that could see the future. "Admiral," his communications officer shouted, "we're receiving targeting data from the human fleet." A holographic display appeared in front of Zexuthan showing a detailed schematic of his own flagship. Every weapon system, every critical component, every structural weakness was highlighted in glowing red. At the bottom of the display, words appeared in perfect hegemony script. "Your turn is next." Zexuthan felt something he had never experienced before. Absolute, crushing defeat round him. His 400-ship fleet was being systematically dismantled by an enemy they had never seen coming. Ships that had conquered galaxies were being reduced to scrap metal by vessels that moved like ghosts and fought like gods. "All ships retreat." He screamed into his communicator. "Emergency jump. Get us out of here." But as his remaining ships tried to activate their faster-than-light drives, they discovered the humans had one more surprise waiting. Smaller human ships, carriers that were still larger than most galactic dreadnoughts, materialized throughout the star system. They had been there all along, invisible and waiting. The retreat routes were blocked. The hegemony fleet was trapped. In 3 hours, 400 pyramid ships that had terrorized the galaxy were reduced to floating debris. The unstoppable Xerian hegemony had been stopped by a species the galaxy had considered. PRIMIT IVES. Zexuthan's flagship drifted powerless in space, its crew unconscious from life support failure. He had one final thought before the human boarding teams arrived. The galaxy had been very, very wrong about humans. The Galactic Council chamber had never experienced silence like this before. For the first time in over 1,000 years of operation, not a single alien delegate was speaking. They all stood frozen at their platforms, staring through the massive transparent aluminum viewports at something that shouldn't have been possible. The used Phoenix hung in space directly outside the station, and it was absolutely massive. The Council station itself was considered one of the largest structures in the galaxy, a spinning wheel of metal and crystal that housed representatives from hundreds of worlds. But the Phoenix made it look like a toy. The human supercarrier stretched across their entire field of vision, its silver hull gleaming under the light of the nearby star. Weapon ports lined its surface like the eyes of some ancient dragon, each one large enough to swallow a frigate. Whole, strange energy patterns danced across its armor plating, creating shifting patterns of light that hurt to look at directly. But the most unsettling thing about the Phoenix wasn't its size or its obvious firepower. It was how quietly it had arrived. One moment the space outside the station had been empty. The next, the massive vessel was simply there. As if it had always existed and they were just now noticing it, Admiral Vextar felt his rise beginning to water as he tried to process what he was seeing. His blue crystalline skin had turned pale, and his hands shook as he gripped the edge of his platform. This was the same alien who had mocked humanity's fleet just weeks ago. The communication platform in the center of the chamber flickered to life, and Captain Kim Daeho's image appeared. He looked completely calm, standing with his hands clasped behind his back in what appeared to be the Phoenix's command center. Behind him, alien delegates could see glimpses of technology that made their most advanced systems look primitive. "Greetings, Council members," he said simply, his voice carrying easily through the chamber's silence. The words seemed to break whatever spell had held the aliens frozen. Suddenly the chamber erupted in dozens of languages as representatives tried to speak all at once. The translation systems struggled to keep up with the chaos. Impossible. Where did it come from? How long has it been there? Oh, there are more, Admiral. Vextar raised one of his forearms, and his voice cut through the noise with desperate authority. Captain Kim, how is this possible? Your fleet roster showed only 12 ships. We verified the data ourselves. We had scouts watching your space lanes for months. The human captain's expression didn't change, but something that might have been amusement flickered in his eyes. 12 ships that you could see, Admiral. Another figure joined the communication display. Ambassador Park Hannah, still wearing the same diplomatic smile she'd maintained throughout her humiliation at the Council. But now that smile seemed to carry a very different meaning. The Phoenix and her sister vessels have been protecting Earth's interests for over 50 years, she explained, her voice carrying the patient tone of someone explaining something obvious to a child. We learned very early in our contact with galactic civilization that the most effective weapon is the one your enemy doesn't know exists. The Granite Lord's massive stone form was trembling so hard that pieces of rock were falling from his bod. Why, and clattering to the floor. When he spoke, his voice sounded like grinding mountains, sister vessels. How many ships do you actually possess? Captain Kim's smile widened slightly, and for a moment the assembled aliens glimpsed something that made their blood run cold. Behind the humans' calm demeanor was the confidence of someone who held all the cards in a game no one else had realized they were playing. Enough, he said simply. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Enough to do what? Enough to protect Earth, enough to destroy the hegemony. Enough to reshape the entire galactic order. The Council chairman, a tall grey being with 6 arms, finally found his voice. The vote, he croaked. We must hold the vote immediately. All those in favor of approving humanity's application for a full military alliance status. Every single appendage, tentacle, claw, and limb in the chamber shot up instantly. The vote was unanimous, a complete reversal of their earlier decision. The same aliens who had laughed at humanity's supposed weakness were now desperate to ally themselves with Earth's hidden strength. But Ambassador Park Hannah simply raised her hand politely, and the chamber fell silent again. "We appreciate the Council's offer," she said, her diplomatic training allowing her to sound gracious even while delivering what amounted to a polite rejection. However, Earth must respectfully decline membership in the military alliance. The aliens stared at her in shock. After everything that had happened, after revealing their incredible power, the humans were refusing to join them. "We prefer to remain the galaxy's insurance policy," Park Hannah continued. "Watching from the shadows, protecting when necessary, but remaining unseen until our intervention is truly needed." As she spoke, the phoenix began to fade from view, not moving away, but actually becoming transparent like a ghost. Within moments, the massive supercarrier had vanished completely, leaving only empty space outside the station viewports. But every alien in the chamber knew it was still there, still watching, still waiting. The council members looked at each other with new understanding dawning in their alien eyes. All this time, they had thought humanity was seeking to join the galactic community as junior partners, bringing their primitive technology and humble military to earn a place among the established powers. They had been completely wrong. Humanity had never been trying to join the galactic community. They had been protecting it all along, standing guard in the shadows while the rest of the galaxy played their political games and fought their small wars. Earth hadn't been seeking alliance with the established powers. Earth had been the established power all along. The age of underestimating humans was over. The galaxy had learned, in the span of a few terrifying hours, that the quiet species from the small blue planet had been watching over them like patient guardians, ready to step in when truly needed. And now, as the council chamber slowly returned to normal activity, every alien present carried the same sobering thought. If humanity had been hiding weapons like the Phoenix for 50 years, what else might they be hiding? The answer, they realized with a mixture of gratitude and fear, was probably better left unknown. The asterisk.